Hey guys, so I am creating for Mother's Day for my mother this year this beautiful fairy garden, and I figured I would just film a how-to video to show you how I accomplished this little task. She absolutely loves it, and I'm really excited to share it with you guys, so I hope you enjoy watching how I created this beautiful fairy garden. So to get started, I headed off to Home Depot to pick up some terracotta pots. A lot of tutorials use these pots, and I fixed them with some industrial strength adhesive to create the 3 tiers that I had in mind for the fairy garden for my mama. I'm just going to use some iridescent green paint, apply it in a couple layers to the pots to give it more of an earthy feel for the fairy garden. And then I know this next part is looking a little bit nuts, but I used a dark color to kind of create some depth on the pots to give it more of a woodsy feel for my fairies. I also picked up this small terracotta drain pot, I guess. I'm not sure what it's really called, but and then I'm applying some paint to this to make a fairy garden pool for the fairies as well. And then I took my fingers and I just dabbed my fingers into some paint to create some faux lily pads in my little pool for the fairies. And this is super easy. You don't have to go to extreme lengths. You don't have to be professional. It's literally my fingers in some paint. What's up? I also applied a few little flowers just to give it a little bit more character. And then using some paint and some swirling magnificent technique here, I created some vines on the pot as well, just to give it a little point of interest. And then to add a little bit of detail, I did include a little bit of a blue, I don't want to call it a highlight, maybe a low light, just to give it a little bit more oomph. By the time I decided to film this video, I had already created my fairy house, but I did sculpt this the night before out of some air dry clay, so here I am just painting some red shingles on the fairy house. So I'm also adding a little bit of detail to the windows that I had cut into the fairy house. I designed this fairy house out of an almond milk container and some air dry clay, like I said before. So I'm just adding a little bit of detail. It's nowhere near perfect, but I like it. It has a very homemade feel to it, which I love about it. So I'm just adding detail to rocks around the windows and on the side of the fairy garden itself. And then I also sculpted out of the air dry clay a little ladder to go from the second tier to the very top tier of the garden. So I'm just applying some gold paint to that to give it a little bit of a woodsy feel, but my mom loves gold, so I did make it gold just for her. And then I did create also, to go from the first tier to the second tier, a little walkway also out of the air dry clay. And in editing this, I kind of realized this looks like a golden turd, but I think the aesthetic is still there when I actually apply it to the pot. So yes, I am applying gold to this as well. Gold is one of my mom's favorites. And then I added a darker color gold that kind of muddied it up to make it look more like a rock. I also picked up a variety of succulents and cacti from Walmart and Home Depot for pops of color, fun shapes and sizes, and just to keep it exciting. I also got the appropriate potting mix, the cactus potting mix from Miracle Grow that is also good for succulents because I want my plants to have good food. And then I'm just packing my pots full of the potting mix. And then this is obviously before I painted the fairy house I had sculpted, but I'm just laying out where I want to put all of the different succulents and cactus for the fairy garden. So it is helpful to kind of get an idea where you want things, where you want to place things before you actually start digging holes and planting them in your pots. So I just go ahead and once I have the layout the way that I wanted it, I started to unpot the plants and put them into the fairy garden. And this is where I realized what a pain it is to repot cactuses. They are very pokey, obviously they're a cactus, but yeah, they kind of stink, but they're really pretty. So my method was basically to dump them onto the table and then finagle them into the pot with this little plastic hook that came off of one of the plant pots. So yeah. And so you'll see I just work my way around the pot, placing the plants where I found that they were most aesthetically pleasing, at least for me, and affixing them into the container where I would like them. So then I strung some lights throughout the fairy garden to give it a little bit more of appeal. I really like the way that these turned out. This is some LED light on some copper wire, and I think that it almost looks like fairies are dancing when the lights are turned on, but it added a little bit of sparkle and shine that the fairy garden definitely needed. And here we have it, the completed fairy garden. I am so in love with it. It is so adorable, and my mom thinks it is fantastic as well. She really loves it. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it, and I hope this gave you a great idea about doing some DIYs of your own in the garden. This is a great gift for Mother's Day or birthdays, and it's also something that you could do that would be fun to do with your kids. Maybe not with cactus, obviously, but other plants, and it's super cute, and I love the way that it turned out. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Give it a like, give it a share, and happy crafting!